Awkward pause. Ben?
Yep. I'm pumped. Let's go.
All right. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
But before every episode, I've now put in like a little jingle for Ben. He's requested it. So
yeah,
he's like, hey, make sure you do that little jingle that you do before you introduce who I am.
Well, he tells me every day, he has to remind me that he can sing. He just doesn't sing in front of anybody.
Yeah, so this is more for myself.
Yeah. One day sing for the show, though.
That's not really my singing voice, though.
All right, fair enough.
All right.
It's like a comedy show, too.
It is, yeah. We like to have fun here.
Yeah, that's good.
And we also have Ryan. Ryan Burgess is here. Thanks, Ryan.
What's up, everybody? How we doing?
First things first, thank you, Ben. Thanks for everybody, all of you tuning in on YouTube and listening on the podcast app, whichever one you choose to use. I think we use Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, and whatever other ones are out there. If
Did you say YouTube?
you say that every time. Yes. I said
I don't
YouTube.
know. I black out during that part every time, I guess.
Ben's just so excited about YouTube because he goes back and watches all the episodes. That's how he sees if he's growing or not.
Yeah.
He goes back and looks at the YouTube videos, and if the veins are popping out a little bit more, then the nutrition's working.
Nope.
That's it.
Right, Ben?
That's it.
But in all seriousness, thank you for listening and thank you for watching. And in the end, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always reach us. Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. I need to work on my lung capacity because these are getting harder and harder for me to say without taking a big breath. You
need cardio.
I need to do the crossing.
The crossing.
Yeah,
yes.
that too.
Yeah.
We'll get
Ryan,
into that.
Thanks for coming on, man. So full transparency, this is the first time I have ever met Ryan.
Yep.
And Ben's been talking about having you come on here for, I don't even know, a long time. I'm assuming, well, whatever, we'll get into that. So Ben comes to me and says, hey, Ryan can come on and do a podcast. What do you think about next week? I said, sure, absolutely. And here we are.
Sweet.
So, Ben, why don't you start us off? Because obviously you're the one that proposed this. And
yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is I don't know. It's like a throwback for me, or what's the word? It's
I don't even know. It's pretty crazy to be sitting here right now with you, to be honest.
Yeah. So Ryan and I, we haven't seen each other probably not even once in like 15 years.
Yeah.
I think we maybe crossed paths once after high school, but we've known each other since, if I recollect correctly, since about 5th grade. We played junior pee-wee football together. My dad coached us.
Yep.
He was our star running back. And actually, I've brought Ryan up in the past when we've been talking about, you're going to laugh about this one. Ryan caused me some trauma, dude.
Oh, God.
And it actually led me to... So I was talking about how I got into working out one day on the podcast, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned Ryan's name. But there was one day in particular, we were sitting in... I think it was 8th grade class, and it was English class.
Okay.
I remember where we're sitting and everything. It's like very vivid, dude. It was traumatic for me. But Ryan killed me in an arm wrestling match. And then afterwards, he's telling me, yeah, man, I got these dumbbells at home. And, and I've been doing these curls.
That's so funny.
Guess what I went home and did, dude?
Some curls.
I said, never again.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I think you probably have me beat nowadays looking at those guns of yours.
do you remember that or no?
I don't, man. I gotta tell you, a lot of my memory now, it's a little bit of a blur from years past. But obviously Ben remembers it, so that's a great story, and I appreciate you opening up with that.
So the man sitting in front of me, and my insecurity is literally the reason I started working out.
God.
Ryan Burgess, he's the culprit.
That's funny. I've never heard that, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm sure I brought it up, but. The other place I was going, like Ryan was like literally our star running back too.
Yeah.
Dude was good for like 4 touchdowns a game. No
Yeah.
joke. He's fast.
They used to call me White Lightning back in the day. I was that skinny little white boy, but I had the speed. So
Nice.
yeah.
So how long did you play football?
I played Pop Warner growing up as a kid, and then ended up going through high school and playing on the varsity team as a running back, and that was kind of it. Kind of ended the career after high school for me.
And from there, what'd you do?
So from there, I went to University of South Florida, and after I graduated from high school at Palm Beach Gardens, and went over to Tampa, USF, and pretty much joined a fraternity and partied my way out. And I got stuck in that crowd, and that's kind of part of my story as well. But found myself back here in Jupiter, Florida.
So I think of the direction, and I want to get there organically. One of the things, at least from my perspective, and I know Ben's as well, is we have a little bit of a different story when it comes to your way to sobriety. And I suppose how you maintain your sobriety today. Ben and I, and it's obvious to all the listeners and everybody that we surround ourselves with, that we're 12-step people. And, it's not that there's plenty of other ways out there to get sober. It's just what organically for me,
Sure.
That's what I was introduced to, and it for me worked, and what I choose to do today. So, but for you, a little bit different. I don't want to rush right into that though. I think, give us a little bit of your backstory. Obviously we touched on a little bit, big in football and born and raised here, but tell us a little bit more just about as a youngster and
Sure.
kind of as you came up through, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, sure. So originally from Michigan, and I've been down here for 30 years now. So my whole family came down, and I'm very close to my family. We all live like in this 5-mile radius up in Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens area. And I was raised, my brother and I, and single mom, stereotypical, like worked a 9 to 5 during the day and was a waitress at night. So I grew up fast. I really kind of grew up fast, took care of my younger brother, and never had the father figure in my life or in my picture. Still don't know who my dad is to this day. So I think, kind of played a part of my story, my childhood growing up, and I was very rebellious, and, always found myself kind of in trouble at a young age. So, like I said, grew up in Jupiter, Florida, went to, high school and all my schooling down here. And during my high school years is kind of where it all started for me.
Do you remember when you distinctly picked up for the first time, whether it be drugs or alcohol?
Yeah. So, I was very much an athlete and wasn't a drinker, didn't want to drink, wasn't into any of the party scene at first. And then I feel like any, peer pressure high school student, kind of found myself in that environment and was going to the keg parties and did all the things. And that's when I first started was picking up the alcohol at just local keg parties.
Yeah.
So.
And you kept on track with like football and all that stuff?
I did.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So you went to Gardens. I ended up going to Jupiter High.
Yep.
But during those years, wasn't Gardens and Dwyer like...
Big rival.
Dude, and they were like, at that time, winning state championships.
Yeah.
It was either Gardens or Dwyer.
Yeah.
Like, it was
big
time football.
Yeah, it really was. We were district champs my junior year. We were televised on the Sunshine Network for the first time. It was a big thing back in, 2000. I graduated in 2002. So during that era, to be televised on TV like that was pretty cool.
How did football... like, what did you utilize football for? Not in the sense of like, okay, we like sports, but like, what did it give you? Did it give you a sense of purpose at the time? Because you obviously played a lot. You were very good at it.
Sure.
Yeah.
For me, it was an escape. It served its purpose at the time, and in high school, I was always that guy. I was the center of attention. I enjoyed being in that, position, and being an athlete too definitely had its benefits. But yeah, I felt like it served a purpose for me, an escape for me at that time, from kind of like the home life and things I was going on personally.
You have siblings, you said?
I do. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Okay.
Yep.
And so I'm just speculating. I mean, when you say an escape, you said the home life, like being in a single parent household, you have your younger brother, your younger sister. I mean, you were probably left to fend for yourself a lot.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I have an absolutely amazing family and mother, and I'm very thankful because she raised me in the man I am today, without a doubt. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, I felt like I had to grow up fast. I didn't have that father figure in my life to teach me how to shave or teach me, the guy things in life that I needed at that time.
When you so did you play through your senior year?
I did. Yep. Played through all out my senior year. My brother was big into football. He ended up going to the University of Florida to play and win the national championship in 2009. So
No kidding.
yeah, it was a big part of my
I
life.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, he played with Tim Tebow and those guys, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was cool.
What's he doing now?
My brother, he's living up in Atlanta, Georgia, just doing his thing, living life, in
Good.
sales and stuff.
So, what made you stop, though? I mean, did you have any opportunities to play in college?
I did. I had some small opportunities for like D3, D2 schools. At that time, I was just kind of growing out of the football stage and really entering my party stage and my rebellious stage. And like I had the fast car and the hot girls and all that. And that's where I was, and that's kind of why I stopped pursuing football and went on to join a fraternity in college. So
I went to college. So far, our stories are very similar in the
Yeah.
sense my mom actually left when I was 2.
okay.
So I only met my mom twice the whole
Okay.
entire time growing up. So it was just me and my dad.
Yeah.
I do have a sister, but she went with my mom.
Sure.
And so I didn't grow up really knowing her. And then, played football and baseball and the whole deal. Archery was my thing.
Wow.
I was really big into archery, but, partied my way out of it.
Sure.
And then I went to college, though. I went to a technical school in Pennsylvania to work on cars.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
That's
didn't
cool.
do the whole fraternity thing. Sometimes I wish I would have, but it is what it is. And Ben, you're proud alumni of Palm Beach State, right?
Yeah, I stayed here because I didn't want to leave my bartending money. That's what it came. I literally made a decision
Yeah.
based off of I like bartending, I like partying, I'm not leaving this town.
That's it.
Yeah. What'd you major in?
Partying.
Okay.
Girls. I mean,
Did you graduate or no?
no. I went up there. I was there for like a year and a half and found myself back here in community college, and, living with mom again.
Bouncing it, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So when did your addiction really grab hold?
I felt like I always knew I had kind of an issue in high school is where it kind of started. And, I experimented with a lot of drugs. I mean, ecstasy was a big thing back then. Special K. I mean, a lot of pharmaceuticals were going around. I remember going to prom and my buddy just laying out a film case of just anything you wanted, Quaaludes, Valiums, just laying it all out. And that's where I did a lot of experimenting with drugs. And then it fell right into going into college.
Yeah. We talk a lot about the college experience with people. In the context of this conversation, like up to this point, it sounds like it really amplified your addiction.
Sure.
I say though too, we know it amplified your addiction, but drugs and alcohol in the college space and as being a young adult, it develops bonds between people.
Sure.
It does, even though it's destroying our lives, we don't know it at the time. We do build bonds with people, we gain friends and stuff like that. But these friendships and these bonds are oftentimes superficial. And I say that in the context of, do you talk to any of the people that you partied with in college and stuff like that?
Nope.
Yeah. And me neither. And when I got sober, I grew up in Pittsburgh area. I came down here. I don't talk to any of them anymore.
Yeah.
2 people I talked to. Well, really 3. But none of them were really my like party buddies. I drank with them and stuff, but they weren't like the people that I hung out with at Tony's Lounge every single day.
Yeah. Tony's, that sounds good.
It was a total just,
Hole in the wall.
yeah, like
Cheers.
It was really cheers. My nickname was Norm.
Okay.
I went there every day, sat in the same bar stool every day, drank the same thing, but that's what it was. I mean, it was very blue collar, I say Pittsburgh, but it was north, like in Amish country, you know.
Gotcha.
But that's what we did. We just went to work and we drank, and you know, it just went downhill from there. So, I want to start to get into take us when the wheels fell off.
Okay.
I want to focus a lot of this podcast on the recovery portion, because I think that's the most important of this.
Sure.
Of all of our guests that we have on, the vast majority are 12-step.
Yep.
We have some people, Alex Uslar, he has a gym down in Miami. He got sober through lifting. Powerlifting, you know.
Great.
Another guy, he is not in recovery, but he talks openly about being addicted to powerlifting, Brandon Lilly. And so it's not very often that we have an opportunity to talk to somebody about this. So that's
Sure.
why I want to focus a lot of
Let's
that.
throw it out there. We don't have a monopoly on recovery is what it comes down to. And I always make that very clear to our clients here too. Like, we'll present you with as many, I don't know, I guess roads to recovery as we can. Typically, people fall into the 12-step because it's everywhere down here. Like, it's a huge culture down here.
100%.
I think if you live down here, it's hard not to fall into that. So,
Well, here's the thing. Most people that walk through these doors, if they were to come to us and say, hey, I'll go to the meetings, I'll do the whatever, because it's part of your program, I'll go through that. I don't believe it's for me. I'll do it, though, because it's part of your program. But also simultaneously, I really want to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to be on board 100% for you to do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
You know? And for us, it's really, we can care less about what approach you want to take to get sober. We really can. So as long as you're willing to do something.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what separates people that, you know, really want to, because, you know, we get the people that are like, you know, they go to the meetings and they get the sponsor and stuff like that because they have to, not because they want to.
Yep,
and
exactly.
they ultimately go through 90 days or 120 days here only to find themselves at the end empty.
Yep.
You know, and then they'll go back out, they'll relapse and, you know, get on that hamster wheel.
Sure.
So that's really what we try and steer away from. So go ahead, get into it. Where the wheels fall off, we'll go from there.
Yeah. So after college, like I said, I found myself living back at home, and I moved into a buddy of mine who went to high school with, and so I moved in. I was in my early 20s, and then we had another roommate, which ended up being my sponsor. You know, which was pretty funny how that all worked out, because him and I mean, we did so much drugs together, and that's kind of where it started, and really got involved heavily with cocaine. And, you know, my roommate at the time was selling it out of the house. I mean, we were hitting 8 balls down on the way down to Miami to hit the clubs, and just really got into the club scene, the party scene. The strip clubs was a big part of my early 20s. And yeah, that's kind of where it really started to take off.
you know what blows my mind? How are we not hanging out? We're literally doing the same thing,
Yeah.
but not together. It's just strange.
Yeah.
It really is strange.
Yeah. For me, it was like it always started with the alcohol. And then from the alcohol, then it's like, oh, okay, what can I get my hands on next? Because then I had to have the cocaine. And especially being in that party scene in the clubs, I mean, it was so easy to get, and especially the strip clubs. And it just, you know, the bouncers or whoever, I mean, it was always around at that time. So yeah, I would definitely say that's kind of where my early 20s, mid 20s really took off. And then it just progressively really got worse from there.
What did getting worse look like?
Well, I mean, I don't want to fast forward too much. You know, I did find out, so I'm going through that kind of phase in my life. And then, you know, I ended up finding out that female that I was involved with was pregnant. So I did clean up my act somewhat at the time. In my late 20s, I think it was 27 when I found out I had a child, or on the way, I should say. So I did try to clean up my act a bit and get sober, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I was still drinking. I tried to put down the drugs and wasn't doing it as much, but yeah, that's where I met her, was in a club. I mean,
That's where all the greatest relationships are developed.
Yeah.
I was a 25-year-old punk at the time and saw this, this girl, and that's kind of where that started.
Were you living on your own? What were you doing for work? Stuff?
So at this time, I'm still living at Lake Park at the time, and I was in the golf business. Kind of grew up as an athlete and being around golf as well. So I was working for a company and doing sales and stuff like that. And I mean, I remember times being up all night and going into work the next day and still strung out, doing lines in the bathroom, like sweating like crazy. And I'm like, what am I doing? But it never stopped me from picking up again,
Did you, at any of this time, did you ever like consider quitting or try to quit?
No.
Really?
It wasn't even a thought. I mean, I didn't think I had a problem. I enjoyed it. I definitely had concerns coming from my family when I was missing birthday parties and family events and stuff like that. But, as an addict, I didn't have a problem. I can take care of myself.
Did your family ever like bring it to your attention that, hey, Ryan, hello, this might be...
Yeah. Like I said, I've always grown up close to my family, and they could see it. They could see it on me. My skin, my eyes were, real dark. Like I said, I was missing a lot of family events. And if you know my family, it's Sunday dinners at mom's and stuff like that. So when I wasn't showing around, there was times I remember my grandma and my aunt came over to that house, and I was just completely embarrassed. I didn't want them there because I knew what was going on, and I just felt very sick to my stomach. And they approached me, but I wasn't ready at that time. I was in my mid to late 20s and having the time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
You were paying your way through, like paying
Yep.
all your bills. That's a difficult position for loved ones to be in, because, and Ben and I have this conversation all the time with loved ones, that they're like, hey, I want Ryan to get clean and sober. What's the best way that I can go about this? And, one of my initial questions to them is, well, what leverage do you have over, I'm just using your name, what leverage do you have over Ryan? Well, none really. He has a job. He's working full time. He has his own car. He pays all of his own bills. I don't have to financially support him, and so on and so forth. We don't have to give him grocery money, stuff like that. So from a parent's perspective, or a loved one's perspective for that matter, it makes it very difficult, because really the ball is in your court at that time.
Yep.
And it's the conversations that we have with people that are, I pay their rent, I pay their car payment, I pay their cell phone bill, I put gas in their car, I give them groceries, stuff like that. That's a quick 10 or 15 minute conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, you're either going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to love you and I'm going to support you, so as long as you stay clean and sober, or you're not going to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to be out on the street. And more often than not, they'll obviously at least attempt sobriety. What do you think on that, Ben?
Yeah, no, you summed it up really well. I mean, it's one of the things that I really struggled with for myself was like, I never lacked any kind of work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always, and that was a big part of my problem, is I knew how to fix myself financially really quick. Like I went back to bartending and personal training, made that quick buck, got the apartment, got the car again, put everything at least on the outside back in line. But even in my full-blown addiction, like Ryan was talking about, it gives me a stomach ache thinking about it. But when he was talking about being in the bathroom at work, like sweating buckets, feeling like hell, doing lines, and at that point, it's not fun because you've been up all night already and you're trying to be responsible. But like, I would willpower my way through that stuff, show up for my shifts, and I was the kind of guy, like, I always made it to work for years and years and years, and then there would eventually be a day where I just like stop showing up. But then I would, pick up a job a few weeks later somewhere else and just pretend like nothing happened. And
I'm a good employee.
Yeah,
you can rely on me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used to just willpower my way through it, but inside I was like dying.
Yeah.
And Yeah, if those are tough phone calls when we get those calls and I'm concerned about so and so's drinking and drugging, and they really support themselves in every other aspect of life. They're just
There's not much you can do.
they have to
Got to
be
run
just
its course.
they have to be exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's totally where I can relate to you too, because I've always had such a strong work ethic. Again, coming from a single mother, I knew I had to. I got my first job at 13 years old, bagging groceries at Publix.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I was bartending or bar backing at the local pubs, and I had to do what I had to do to get my first car and work my way through supporting myself financially, drugs, alcohol, everything else. Not to say that my mom didn't help me, but I certainly had that strong work ethic backbone in my body, and just like you.
Well, it instilled. I mean, yeah, it instilled good values. And
Yeah.
and that's the other thing. People often look at us, the three of us here, and they're like, oh, well, especially when we're in addiction, it's like, oh, Ryan's coming over, hide all your stuff,
Yeah.
or Ben's coming over, hide your stuff, or Tom's coming over, park your car far away because he might crash into it. But deep down inside of us, we're good people. And we oftentimes have very good work ethic because, man, we didn't care much about bills, but we did care about our addictions, and we did anything that we had to make sure that we could maintain it, and if that meant work your tail off, you worked your tail off.
Yep.
I have a lot of my friends are, they're bricklayers, they're electricians and mechanics and iron workers. I mean, climbing hundreds of feet in the air, just to earn a paycheck so they can maintain their addiction. And there's people out there that don't have any addiction problems, that they just don't, it's almost like they're, oh, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to make my paycheck and I'm going to pay my bills, but they don't have the work, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do what I need to do to make as much money as I possibly can so I can have as much fun as I possibly can.
That was it.
Right, Ben?
That doesn't sound fun either.
No, it wasn't fun, but I mean, the rewards were fun until they weren't.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get to it. The last, I don't know, let's call it year, I suppose, before you got clean. Unless if there's anything in the mix of this that you feel that you want to say, that I don't want to breeze over anything.
Yeah, no, I'll tell it how it is. So my late 20s, I found out I had a son, and completely like, oh shit. One of those moments, what do I do? I didn't know her, and it's just like I said, someone I met at the club, but I manned up, and a part of it was because I grew up without a father. So it was important for me to be in my child's life, and but yeah, so I cleaned myself up, or I thought I did for that time, and going into my early 30s, and then I started hanging out with the wrong crowd again, as we all do. And so I started picking up and using again, and that's when really the alcohol really took over. I mean, that's going out to local bars and clubs and blackout. I mean, it was just every time was complete blackout. I was ashamed when I woke up the next morning. I was like, what did I do? Mm-hmm. Hanging out with the wrong people, had the wrong girlfriend at the time, and started really getting heavy into cocaine. And that's when it kind of started, was my early to mid 30s, really using heavy in the cocaine.
When you made that switch, I mean, was there like because alcohol was my thing, and I remember when I did cocaine that was always one of the ones that I said I'd never do.
Yeah.
And well, any drug I ever did, at some point I said I'd never do it, but I ultimately ended up, What was that like for you when you started doing it? Are you like, oh crap, I've reached this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of started, I kind of stopped, and then I picked back up. I loved it. I was completely hooked. I loved, everything about it at that time. It kept me up all night. I can keep going. but yeah, that was definitely my drug, which led into my crack cocaine addiction. Going from the cocaine and wanting something more stronger and powerful, and wanted to, you know, basically take it to the next level. And that's where I really got hooked on crack cocaine.
How long did you do that for?
I was hooked on crack for a few years. You know, I can't tell you specifically. You know, it was probably 2 years or so that I was hooked on crack. Going into what kind of started my sobriety.
Yeah, so let's get there now. You, I know before we started recording, you talked about an overdose.
Yeah. Yep. So, you know, it brings up a lot. It's tough to talk about sometimes because it hits me right here. Because it's, you know, it's a hard thing to think about for me and where I was in that time of my life. And, you know, like I said, I got really hooked on crack cocaine and hanging out with the wrong people. And October 23rd of 2017, I was shot up with crack cocaine and heroin mixed. It was the first time I actually picked up a needle. And to be honest with you, the last time I picked up a needle, the girl I was with at the time shot me up. And the last thing I remember is just that blood going through the needle, and blacked out. I was done. I overdosed.
They came and picked you up, or?
Yeah. So luckily, you know, the person I was with, I didn't know her worth a shit, to be honest with you. This is someone I've hung out with 2, maybe 3 times and just used with. And she picks up the phone, calls 911, and she ends up giving me CPR to keep me alive until the ambulance came and shoved Narcan up my nose to revive my life. And that's kind of the last thing I remember is waking up, literally, like, you know, you talk about seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what I saw. And I just remember waking up and, like, this, you know, the ambulance and throwing up and like, what the hell just happened? What did I just do? And it was a very surreal, scary moment in my life, but it still didn't, you know, still didn't think I had a problem after it, which is the crazy part.
So that you kept using after that?
Yeah. So I, you know, I was sent to the local hospital, and I spent a few nights in there, and nobody knew what was kind of going on. My family didn't know. I had to actually call into work, and it came up as the hospital, so they kind of knew something was up. I accidentally checked myself out of the hospital. I lived close enough to where I could walk home. And, you know, at this point I was living on my own. I had my own house. So this is my first townhouse that I owned that I've had for a couple of years, and went home and really thought about just kind of what happened. And like I said, still didn't think I had a problem, which is the scary part, and started picking up and using again.
I mean, we hear it all the time, you know, people overdosing and stuff, but that is the true definition of insanity.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
You're literally dead, and you know, you're spared. Your life is spared. You're given another shot, and well, maybe it's a fluke. I won't let that happen again. You know, and we see it all too often, and it's sad because, you know, that is a very pivotal moment. That is, even though the circumstances obviously are terrible, it's a very big opportunity for people, and they don't capitalize on it. You know, there's some people that do. They overdose, and that is what they need.
Yeah.
But then there's other people that overdose and get released from the hospital and then overdose and are back in the same bed, you know, 6 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. A week later, same hospital, same doctor.
Really?
Yeah. But you don't. It's weird. It's hard to explain unless you've been there. Like
Yeah.
you want to say the words thought process. What's the thought process there? But at the same time, you're like, I wasn't even thinking either.
Yeah.
Like which is it? You know, that's the cunning, baffling, powerful part about the whole thing is it just doesn't make sense. I still can't wrap my mind around what was I thinking or not thinking? How do you even put that into words to someone who hasn't experienced it? I haven't figured it out. You can't.
Yep.
And that's the other, again, I refer to a lot of the conversations that we have with parents and loved ones. They oftentimes ask, they just overdosed. Why are they going back to, and to this day, I don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
Me either.
And we've been doing this a long time. We've had many conversations with people about, these situations and scenarios, and I don't have a clear-cut answer. The only thing I can say is this is addiction, and it's it's pretty sad. But all right, so when did you get sober? What was that like?
Yeah, so that happened. I was 34 years old. That was October 17th. October 23rd of 2017. And like I said, still didn't think I had a problem. I didn't check into rehab until January of 2018. I was literally, after my overdose, I lost everything. I lost my child. I lost friends. Luckily, I still had family support. My house was in foreclosure. I was literally spending my last $40 on crack cocaine at the time. Neighbors next door, they were smoking too, so that didn't help the situation. And I lost everything. At that point, I didn't honestly care if I lived or died. I had nothing left. So finally, I had like a little intervention. Family came over, knew something was going on, and I ended up checking into rehab, a place called Best Life up in Jupiter, in January of 2018. So this is a few months after my overdose.
And that was like an outpatient program, I think?
Yep. It was an outpatient. Looking back, definitely should have been an inpatient, but that's, what, my mom actually helped me a lot throughout this process. So I was very fortunate for her and found Best Life. It was right up the street. Really beautiful facility, great, people to work with. And I'm going through this whole 4-month outpatient program.
And you didn't pick up at all?
Oh yeah. That first year was tough. I mean, going into that outpatient, I moved back in with my mom because I knew I needed help. Being alone for me was always like, that's when the mind's racing of like, I want to pick up. It's easy. Nobody's here. It's easy to get away with. So I used going up into outpatient. We were regularly drug tested, so I didn't have that option at the time. We were going to get kicked out. But my first year of sobriety was tough. Yeah, I had a few relapses that first year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went through the outpatient program, and took a look around at my surroundings. I'm like, what am I doing? Who am I? Do I belong here? Questioning myself, looking at myself in the mirror. And, at that point, I realized I had a real problem,
What do you think that problem was?
My addictive personality, whether it was drugs or whether it was anything I did in my life, it was full throttle all the time, driving bikes, driving cars. It was 100 miles an hour. I mean, jumping out of planes, that was my life. I lived for that adrenaline rush. And I took that right into the drugs. It was how fucked up I could get, or how stoned I could get, or how blacked out. So, yeah, I've always known I had a problem. I just didn't want to face reality.
Yeah.
I put a blind eye to it.
Jumping out of planes. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I've I grew up as a little bit of a general drunkie. So I've done some skydiving in my time, and I used to drive motorcycles. So I was doing I think I got up to 165 down on Beeline, just hauling.
Oh,
I was into cars, all that stuff.
no, thank you.
Yeah, no thanks, dude.
I'm
I'll stick to crack.
Yeah.
So you obviously now, again, before we started recording, you didn't really, I don't want to say buy in, but you don't do a 12-step program. What does your sobriety look like today? Well, go ahead, Ben.
I did hear, correct me if I'm wrong, you said earlier you had a sponsor and stuff. What's that quick snippet? Because obviously, like you,
Yep.
were kind of shown, maybe got a taste of it, and
Sure.
what that looked like?
Sure. So actually, so the guy I used to live with in my early 20s who sold the cocaine and did, party with actually ended up being my sponsor, which is kind of funny how it all comes full circle like that. And, heard what happened. My mom was close with him and kind of reached out as a friend at that time who I haven't seen in a few years. And it was important for me to stay connected in that first year of sobriety. And I did go through the 12 steps. I did get a sponsor. And for me, I had to stay connected with the men's group. It was important to be surrounded by that masculine energy because I felt like the females always got me in trouble.
Yep.
So, I did men's group for that first year. I had a sponsor. I was going to AA. And to be honest with you, I just didn't feel like it was for me. I felt like it was important to stay connected. And I was going back for alumni nights at Best Life where I did my outpatient. And, I felt like it was important to stay connected that first year, 100%, because it was tough. It was really tough. And a quick story. So I'd go back to Best Life as an alumni. You can come back, kind of tell your story, and you have new people coming in and going through the program. So I'm telling my story, and it's a small group, and I'm telling my story and how I overdosed and everything. So at the end of the story, these guys have an opportunity to speak, and one guy raises his hand, and he goes, "Ryan, I just want to let you know, I was the 911 operator on that phone call when she called."
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah. I was like, it still gives me chills right now. So this guy was a 911 operator, now in there for recovery himself as an alcoholic, who picked up the phone when I overdosed.
Wow.
Yeah. You talk about
That's
chills.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you still talk to him or no?
No, I unfortunately lost contact with him, but that was a moment right there, and gave him a big hug, and there's hope.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
yeah.
Never know who you're going to run into.
That's it.
Yeah, man. There's, we call them coincidences, but are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So what's it look like now? I know you're woo. Well, I'll let you get into this part.
Yeah, so as I'm going through my outpatient program, an ex-girlfriend of mine, a friend of mine, she heard she kind of knew what was going on, and so she sends me this link. I've always grown up around the water, the ocean, kind of a beach boy, and so she sends me this link. I look into it. It's called Crossing for the Cure. I'm like, all right. So I started looking into it, and it's a nonprofit called Piper's Angels Foundation, and what we do is raise money and awareness for cystic fibrosis in the community. And this event, it's called Crossing for the Cure at the time, and we paddleboard from Bahamas back to Florida, 80-mile paddleboard. So she sends me this link, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, damn, this is awesome. This is like, this is kind of up my alley. It gave me a goal. It gave me to work towards something, and took my addiction and my energy and started putting it towards getting back on the water. And so I went February or March, excuse me, when I was in my outpatient program. I went to an event where the crossing was, and I met the executive director and who started the foundation. And he looked me up and down. He said, "You can do this." I said, "Really?" And I signed up that day. I went home. I was so excited. And I signed up that day, not knowing a single person. And, it's a big part of my story. And so after I overdosed on October 23rd of 2017, I turned around and crossed my first ocean in June of 2018, 80-mile paddle.
Well, like 8 months later?
Yeah. Yeah, about 8 months later.
What was that like that first time?
Man, it still hits home for me because it was a very powerful moment to be so connected to something, which, that's where I found my higher power. Part of my story was being on in the ocean. That's where, I could be free. And that first crossing of mine, man, I'll never forget it. It was like Lake Atlantic, and it just set up so perfect. And it was the most physical, emotional, spiritual, emotional journey of my life. And that's where my addiction turned into something positive. And that's kind of where I've been heavily involved since, and very proud of it.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. We're like, earlier you were talking about your addictive personality basically being a liability. Let's
Sure.
call it what it is. It
Yeah.
normally is. But I always say, like, dude, I'm so grateful to be a junkie.
Yeah.
And I used to hear that in meetings. Like, I would go into a meeting and so I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And I'm like, why are you grateful for this? This sucks.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for people like us that can take that and they can focus it on something,
Mm-hmm.
the things that we're able to achieve, like as people in recovery, I mean, it makes normies look weak.
Yeah.
Just throw it out there. But I'm just kidding, normies.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we're able to focus and just find that purpose,
Yeah.
like you talked about a higher power. I think a lot of it, you come into treatment, for instance, hopefully people along this line find some sort of purpose,
Sure.
something that they can focus on. You refer to the ocean as your higher power, like something that gave you drive, something to chase, something to take up that time, that space in your head. That's what we're hoping people find here.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, and
That's it. Whether it's the ocean or anything, they take it and turn it around. I had to go through that moment of my life and that overdose to become where I'm at today. It's a part of me. It doesn't define me, but it's a part of my story. And it's it gave me that drive and that power to turn it into something positive and do what I'm doing now.
What was it like when you finished that first one?
Man, that first crossing, it's a very special one. It's a sense of reward. Yeah, I'll never forget my mom being right there at that finish line and bawling her eyes out, and myself too. And it almost brings tears to my eyes right now. But that sense of accomplishment and that reward, I can't even describe it, because the amount of emotions that was going through my body after completing something so grueling, and to fight back and look at where I was 8 months ago on my deathbed and now celebrating life. It was amazing.
well, too, like, and again, man, Ryan and I haven't talked in forever, but I've been following him on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. And obviously he'll be able to tell us better than I can. But like, I was watching one of his videos where he was crossing the finish line, just to give people an idea of how hard this is. You're not going out for some leisure paddle,
Yeah.
but he was literally like crawling across the finish line and looked like ended up in the back of an ambulance. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
looks extreme.
It is.
Let's call it what it is.
It is 100%. It's an open ocean 80-mile international paddle challenge. We leave Bimini, Bahamas. We leave at 12 o'clock in the morning. So you're in the pitch darkness of the ocean. And, you are following and drafting behind a boat. So they have the coordinates and leading you back to Lake Worth. But yeah, it's 100% extreme. I mean, this it can be life or death. I mean, granted, we've never had any crazy injuries or anything like that. But yeah, 2021, that was a rough year. We only had 10 paddlers finish, and me being one of them, and 6-foot swells. And I left my heart and soul out on that ocean that year.
And you're doing it for a good cause.
Mhm.
Like, as an outsider looking in, like, I see you on Instagram, I'm like, this dude's like the liaison for this. Like, I seen a picture of you like wearing a tuxedo. Like,
Yeah.
like paddling.
One picture's out there.
Looks like you get custom boards and
Yep. Sponsored by Celsius Energy Drink now. So I do have some local sponsors, so wellness fitness places. And, I'm very thankful now. So I've taken this energy and created something positive out of it. And that's what, I want everyone to get a message today, is that there is hope. Coming from the deepest, darkest hole that I was in and crossing oceans, there's hope.
And so anybody that listens to our podcast and familiar with, Rock and how we do the workouts here, got the gym downstairs and whatnot, getting our clients involved with that. It sounds like this has also evolved into more, I'll let you tell them, but earlier you were kind of giving me a snippet of how you're a trainer now, so to speak. Stuff along those lines. You have different certifications and talk about the you could talk about the program you work up in Jupiter.
Sure. Yeah. So after my first crossing, I was still fresh in my recovery. This is 2018. I was still going through my 12 steps that first year. And, I knew this is a big reward then. And that's what I really got out of it. I understood that there was something more to this than just myself. Cause at the end of the day, I'm helping others. And that's where the benefit and the love comes, and the reward is serving others for me now. And so after that first crossing, I really wanted to get involved with this nonprofit. And so I started as the director of mentorship. So I started mentoring all these paddlers that are coming in. Now, granted, we only had 34 paddlers in 2018. And coming into 2019, we jumped, 100 paddlers in 2018. And we jumped up to 200 in 2019. And I was the director of mentorship and helping and guiding these paddlers across the ocean. And it took a moment for me, like, holy shit, like you're listening to me, you're taking advice from me. Like, looking back, I was a freaking crack addict and alcoholic, and now I'm giving advice. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this just filled my heart. And so that's kind of where my mentoring started really taking off, being the director for the foundation. And then, this past year, I'm now a head coach at a local gym up in Jupiter called Metabolic. And just dove right into the fitness scene after quitting my corporate America job that I had enough with.
Wasn't fulfilling.
No.
So my sponsor said something to me that jumps to mind right now. He said, don't worship the map more than the treasure.
Okay.
And for me, the map was the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps. In essence, in my opinion, what I'm hearing is basically the same principles and ideas.
Sure.
You're talking service and how it filled your heart. Like, at the end of the day, for me, the easy route was, well, not easy, don't get me wrong, but like the obvious one for me was like, oh, I got, I'm a junkie, I've recovered, I can go help other junkies. But like the idea of service in itself, it doesn't have to be alcoholics and drug addicts.
Yeah.
Like, clearly you've found service work in other ways. Mm-hmm. And dude, if that fills your heart, that's what this is about.
1,000%.
That's the whole thing right there.
1,000%.
We're selfish, self-centered people when we're in active addiction, and now you're doing something for somebody outside of yourself. That is essentially what recovery is.
Yes, 100% right.
There's more than one way to get there, and dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I found my way, and I'm sitting here now going on my 5th crossing. I'm actually going to be crossing the ocean again for my 5th time in 30 days from here. So we're landing on June 25th, Lake Worth Pier.
And I see you too, like on Facebook, like the little maps of where you went, like, and you're like leading groups, like even them little, but they're not so little, dude. I'm like, did 20 miles today.
What is that?
I'm like, what?
Yeah. So as the director, I create all these events, and I help these paddlers again, like, get across the ocean. So I create these events. It's a 6-month program I kind of lead them to, starting in January, leading up to the crossing in June. And we start building on the miles and different techniques, and understanding the importance of on-water training and off-water training. So we'll build our miles from like 5, 10. We'll get up to 20, up to 30-mile training paddles, spending like the whole day, 6-7 hours on the water, just in training, getting ready, prepared.
What does off-water training look like?
For me, building that muscle endurance. I spend a lot of time on, strength training in the gym, working with kettlebells and dumbbells. We have the skiers, bikes, rower machines. So, building up that athleticism and endurance is a big part of training as well.
Hopefully our listeners are catching on to like the similarities here. All the same philosophies.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So how many paddlers do you think you guys will have this year?
We're about, again, we have to cap it off at 200 just because Bimini has a north and south island. They can only, facilitate for so many people on this island. It's a very small island. It's the closest, if you were to take Miami right off the coast, it's, the closest island. The time you catch the Gulf Stream and drafting behind the boats, it makes it for an 80-mile paddle.
Do they all go out at one time, or do they go out in like stages?
Yeah, so we have different stages. So there's different ways of approaching the crossing. I personally, I know some people think I'm crazy. I love the physical demand, the spiritual demand, the emotional, like I said, of doing the full 80. So I've never once been on the boat. So I go from beach to beach the full 80 on my own. There's a lot of ways to approach it. You can do a 2 or 4 person relay, but at the end of the day, it's about the journey. It's about the impact that you're having on the community. It's about being stronger and happier and healthier for oneself and giving back, you know? So, and like I always say, it doesn't matter to me whether you do 5 miles or all 80 miles. It's the impact on the reward of what we're bringing.
Maybe we could do this, Ben.
Yeah, dude. Rock recovery team.
Tom, you got to learn how to swim first.
There's a boat there. If I fall off, I'll just get picked up.
Tom will not be tying a rope to my paddle.
Yeah.
My paddleboard.
That would be something I would be interested in trying.
Yeah,
maybe.
Definitely.
I feel like
I'd love to train you, man.
You know what? One thing about Tom, though, like I give him a hard time and tease him a lot. But when Tom has something to focus on, he follows through and does it.
Okay.
Like when he has a powerlifting meet to do,
Sure.
like when he's given that plan and that training program, he follows programs.
Good.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
If I don't have that though,
If there's
forget.
no goal,
yeah,
he drops off.
Yeah.
yeah, that's something I think we could entertain, Ben.
Yeah, a rock team.
You'd
I
have
guess
to
it would-
probably get a little bit more. Not
Yeah, I need to lose some weight.
me too, but
Sure.
I feel like I'm more flexible than you
Oh, for
at
sure,
this
dude.
point. Like
Yeah.
you're just kind of like a brick wall.
My surfing's gone downhill big time in the last.
Well, look at all the muscle
Yeah,
you got on you
yeah.
now, man. You look great, though.
You surf? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I stand up surf, so I stop surf.
What's that mean?
Just paddleboard. Yeah,
You surf
I'm
with-
already like standing up on my paddleboard, and I just glide right into the swell.
So
I'm catching
SUP
it way
is
before- yeah, here we go.
SUP.
Yeah, sorry.
Stand up paddleboarding. Tom's from Quaker
I forget
Town,
that.
USA.
Yeah, I forget that.
Horse and buggy town.
Yeah.
Literally, horse and buggy.
I skimboarded once,
Okay,
and
I honestly think that's tougher than paddleboarding.
You should hear him try to explain what skimboarding is.
no, we're not.
I
Gonna
was on
go
a
there.
prior podcast.
Yeah.
I had a skimboard for about. I bought it and I gave it away 6 hours later, and I did it one time. And I threw the skimboard and I ran behind it to try and jump on it. And as soon as my feet hit it, went out from underneath me. I smashed my head on the sand, which was like concrete,
Yeah.
and I gave it away. I'm like, nope, this ain't for
Yeah.
me.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's why I said it's harder in paddleboarding. I feel like at least you're falling in the water when you're on a board, you know?
Yeah, but you see them little kids though. I mean, they jump on those things and
Yep.
they're like, I'm like,
Dude,
man.
the way these kids surf nowadays is crazy.
Yeah.
It's
So you don't use an actual surf, or I mean, it's.
I can. I mean, you know, that's the difference between prone boarding, what Ben does, and stand up paddleboarding, surfing.
What's easier?
I think paddleboarding.
I would think the opposite because, dude, I don't know. Like, I think I'd have a hard time getting out. Do you? I guess I haven't really watched people do it because I'm always paying attention to what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
do you literally like stand up? How do you
Yeah.
duck dive?
Yeah, so I go right over the waves. I have different types of boards. Like, so the boards we cross the ocean on, they're 14 feet long. So they're designed for the ocean. They're designed like the bow of a boat to cut through the waves. And but yeah, you're going right over it. But there's spots that I get to that on the outside that surfers never even come. So that's why I enjoy it. I catch 10 year one. So sorry, buddy.
Yeah, no, that's true, dude. I get so annoyed with the crowds these days.
Yeah.
When we grew up in high school here, man, there was like you could drive down Donald Ross Road and there was like Mecca Farms and
Yeah.
there was no baseball stadium. There was
Nothing.
you go down to the beach, there was no sidewalk. You'd have to like
Yep.
crawl down the dune.
Yep.
So if you don't go, like I've watched Ben and other people surf, the wave is coming, it crashes. You got a big, what do they call it, whitewash? I suppose the big.
Yeah, white water. Yeah, white water. Well,
Fair enough.
If you're on a paddle board,
yeah.
how do you get under that?
So once I get out there, now I can see the swell way before anybody else because I'm up here and all your surfers are down here.
Oh, because you're standing up.
Correct. So I'm
Got it.
already paddling, getting into the swell way before it even breaks. That's the fun part about these paddle boards is I'm already on it. The surfers have to wait to really kind of where that white water you're talking about to break.
See, guys like him piss me off because
That's what I mean.
sitting 40 yards
In front,
closer to
yeah.
the beach than him because his board's with the paddle and the size of the board, he's
to get it
catching
going.
the wave 40 yards before I can even start
So you
paddling.
get to ride that thing.
A lot
Yeah,
longer.
yeah.
Why don't you do that, Ben?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm a
take you
creature
out.
of habit, dude. I should give it a go.
You should try.
I should give it a go.
You should try that, and then you know what we can do? We can go to the Juneau Pier, and I'll go out on the pier and I'll watch you guys.
So I've only used rental boards. I've never used like a nice paddleboard.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure there's a difference because there's a major
Oh, yeah.
difference between like a rental surfboard and like the boards that I buy.
Sure.
You know, and so
Because Ben runs a surf group with our clients every now and again. Because what do we have? We have
I just got some soft top 8-foot board. It's fun bringing the clients out. It's like a controlled drowning class. And you know what? You know what's interesting about it though is there's literally a lesson in it. So I'm glad we're talking about this. Kind of cool. But you know, you get the clients here and you always got the few guys like, yeah, man, I surf. I grew up surfing, and they didn't really. You find out, but
Sure.
I digress.
Yeah.
But all the guys, it's always the guys. They're super cocky,
Yep.
and they're talking about how I skateboard, so I'm going to get out there and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to take this wave in. I'm like, all right, buddy. So before we go out, I kind of show everybody on the beach like the basic ideas behind it.
Sure.
And I ask, I'm like, does anybody want my assistance or help doing it? All the dudes are like, no. They don't let the ladies go first. They grab those boards. They run down the beach. They make it about 6 yards out before they're getting slammed back to the beach.
Oh, sure.
What they didn't think through is the fact that paddling out is a major obstacle
Sure.
before you can even think about catching a wave and thinking about standing up. They don't realize, like, hey, I got to get out there first, which honestly people probably struggle with more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the girls watch the
Challenging.
guys fail.
And now they don't want
And
to
a
go.
girl will come up and be like, I'll try it. And I help them paddle out, and then they're surfing their way back in, and all the dudes are just like huffing and puffing on the beach, all pissed off that some girl just outsurfed them.
Yep.
I'm like, but hey, there's a lesson in that.
Yep.
This chick took the time to get guidance, and she did it. And you tried to run your own self-will and willpower, you plowed right into the sand.
I do got some video of a couple of our clients actually got up and rode
That's
a couple
cool.
of waves. I was out there with my GoPro.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm and I can at least stand. You know, I have to be able to. Once I get to the point where I can't touch the bottom,
Yeah.
forget it. Now, put me on a surfboard, and at least I know I'm not going to drown. I'll be okay. But
Yeah. I'd love to join you guys one time and
Yeah,
get
well,
out
that's what
there
I
with
was thinking.
We'd love to. We could do something together. I would love the opportunity.
We need to set that up.
Yeah, we'll work something out for sure because I think I'd rather work with somebody in recovery,
Sure.
you know, as opposed to just renting boards from a random place like we do for our groups. And, you know, you could share a part of your story like you just did with our clients and what you do. Heck, man, I'll be straight up with you. Like, they've got addictive personalities. You might have 5 crossers. Right
I
now.
would love
Is that
it.
what you call them? What do you call them?
Yeah.
Crossers?
Crossing Crusaders is what we call it.
Crossing Crusaders.
Yep.
I bet you got some Crusaders downstairs
love it.
right now.
I
would love it.
guarantee you, dude, over the past years, we would have dozens upon dozens of people that would have
Yeah.
did something like that.
Because a lot of them, too, they come from out of state and they end up staying down here.
Oh yeah. I'm sure.
So, like, and dude, they're building roots. They're, you know,
Cool.
they need to be in new groups of people. And
That's what it's about. I mean, that's kind of was for me, you know, finding that community and surrounding myself with positive people and like-minded people, you know, to keep me out of trouble.
yeah.
Well, I'm sure there was a lot of opportunity too that came out of it too, because you build networks with people, you build relationships with people, and you know. So, well, this is fun, Ben. What do you think?
Yeah, man, it was cool.
Yeah,
dude,
this is
but
awesome.
it's just so weird sitting here. In particular, Ryan, I don't know that I've had this experience doing a podcast and all these episodes because, like, knowing that we grew up like the same exact, like every time he talked about something he was doing, like I start getting those butterflies in my stomach because, like, when he's I like know where he's at.
Yeah.
I know what, like, who he was around. It's strange, man.
Yeah.
It's strange, and I truly wonder, like, how were we not partying together?
I know. Yeah, it's funny how it all works
He
out,
was in the
but
crack house next door. Didn't even know he was
Probably.
there.
yeah, probably.
Probably better off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Ryan, for coming on. Appreciate it. And we'll work something out. We'll get something going,
Sounds good.
Yeah,
collaborate together in some way.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate this
dude.
opportunity to come on and tell my story and share it with you viewers at home. So.
All right, cool, man. All right, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And hey, if you want to try stand-up paddleboarding and crossing the ocean and you think that might be something you'd be interested in,
Let me know.
send us an email and we'll link you up with Ryan over here and get you started in some capacity. And yeah, so that is it. We will see y'all later.